So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Matchfit Football Podcast. I'm Darren, your host, as always, here on the show. And if you need anything regarding your Matchfit football needs, check out the Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube page at Matchfit Football. But here we are on the podcast. Today's guest, he's playing for Ross County. He's had a bit of a tenure at Blackbird Rovers. We're going to get into it. He's from Canada. He's living out in Scotland. It is Ben Paton. Ben, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Delighted to get you on the show and tell me a little bit about what it's been like for you since you've moved north of the border, so to speak, from Blackburn up to Scotland and settling into Ross County and playing in the SBL.
Yeah, I'd say it's a lot different. I was down in Manchester with Blackburn, and it's a lot different, obviously, in the Highlands in Scotland. Just the scenic route, and even just the playing style in Scotland is a lot different than England. But just getting adjusted to it and really just enjoying it.
What's been the big difference for you? You know, you mentioned right there the playing style's been a bit different. Is it more physical in Scotland, or is the expectation different? How have you found it?
I say it's more physical. I say more physical. In England, it's more just like play, just get on the ball. Where in Scotland, it's more just that physical threat in behind, or even just the feet. It's just a lot different.
Interesting. It's an interesting dynamic, and we'll come on to that in a little bit when we start talking about the match fit performance section. But just to get a little bit more depth into who you are, obviously you grew up in Canada, you're from Ontario, and then you made the switch over to England. What was it like for you growing up in Ontario and playing football? Because obviously you have those very harsh winters in Ontario, and I'm sure it's very,
Yeah.
very different to the UK.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to have a really good coach back home. I played at the youth level at Kitchener, just like my local team. I was there till I was think under nines to about under 15 or under 13, sorry. Where I then ended up going to Brampton in Toronto, and then I played for 2 years there before I went over to the UK.
So it's a big adjustment for you, and obviously moving country at such a young age. How did you find that? Because we've a lot of young people who listen to this show, and they want to figure out how they can learn to be professional footballers, what they can add to their game, you know, to take them to the next level. But something that maybe can't be taught is how to adjust, you know, with moving away from home. Was that something you struggled with, or something that you were excited for? How did you deal with it?
I say I mostly just enjoyed it. Like at first, like I say, like the first week was a bit different, obviously being away from home. But I think just the fact that I was playing football and getting to do what I love every single day, I just enjoyed it most of all.
Yeah, I think that's part of the journey, isn't it? And as we come on to this next section, like I always like to ask every one of my guests, what are the keys to elite performance in your mind? What do you need, or what are the attributes needed for you to succeed and perform at the highest level?
I'd say work ethic. I think that's massive. You just always got to have a good attitude at everything you do. I'd also say just like your diet is massive. Like if you want to get the extra edge on your opponents, just always constantly just monitoring what you eat. For me, at a young age, I was lucky with my mom and stuff. She never really gave us like fast food or anything. So like I've never had a McDonald's or like a KFC or even just fizzy drinks. So I say like that's key. I know people always think I'm crazy, like thinking, oh, you never had a McDonald's and stuff, but I just think that's a massive way to get above your opponents. Just eating healthy and then just monitoring your body as well. Just with recovery, it may be boring, but just it's important to like make sure that your body's right all the time.
It is, isn't it? And it's about knowing your body as well. You know, you mentioned about not having McDonald's, not having a KFC, so you've probably never even had the desire for it because you've never had that,
Yeah.
like, oh, this is great. And then almost, you know, because of the recovery process of understanding your body, knowing when you have a niggle and when you need to stretch and when you need to do something different. In terms of methods of recovery, and we were going to come to this a little bit later on, but because you touched on it, I'm going to run with it. Methods of recovery, what do you like to do if you feel yourself having a knock or a niggle, or even today? Day after a game yesterday, had a very high intense game yesterday from all accounts that I've read online. How do you
Yeah.
recover the next day? Like, what do you do different?
Well, we actually had like a recovery day today, so I'll just talk you through that. So we go into training just in the morning. We usually do like the analysis of the game, or just to go over the clips, and then we do like a pool recovery. So we do some stretching in the pool, just dynamics stretching, and then we also do our own stretching in the gym, bit of bike. There's also like we have it's called a Normatech. It's like I'm trying to explain it. It's like pants, but like they compress.
Yeah.
It's good for your legs, and then just foam rolling and ice bath as well.
Mhm. Would you have like a gym routine at all as well as part of your development and or anything maybe outside of football?
Yeah, so we usually do like gym 3 times a week. When I was at Blackburn, we did so like on a Monday it would be upper body,
Mhm.
Tuesday lower body, and then on a Thursday it would be like power, just trying to get that explosiveness before the game. Every club's different. Like at
Mhm.
Ross County, we do 2 gym sessions and they kind of mix it all together.
Mhm.
So it just depends on the club and your sports scientist, but that's usually the typical gym program.
Mhm. Talk to me a little bit about Ross County. How have you found settling in Scotland and playing first team football and how, like it's only been a couple of games into the season so far. We're 5 or 6, maybe we're more than 5 or 6. Maybe my math is way off here, but it's been quite a few. We're still at the early stages of the season that we word it that way. How have you found it so far playing first team football and adjusting to a new team, new country, and everything that comes with that?
Yeah, it's a lot different. I was lucky like to have my brother who also plays for Ross County. So it's just good to have him
Mhm.
help me out because he's already made a few like first team appearances. So to help me out. I think the massive step is just, game management. If you're winning a game, make sure that you don't concede or like just slow down the game, or whether it's you need to get a goal, you might have to up the pace of the tempo of the game.
Mhm.
I'd also say just um, yeah, I'd just say like always needing to get points on the board, whether that's away from home
Mhm.
and you just get a 1-1 draw and just take the 1 point and go on.
Mhm. That's it, isn't it? You're just always trying to get those points on the board, something to build on, so to speak, every week. You mentioned nutrition earlier on, so again, for our listeners that listen to this, what would you eat pre-match? What's your favorite go-to pre-match meal?
It depends on the time of the game. So if it was like a 3 o'clock or like an earlier kickoff, I usually have like toast with eggs, like scrambled eggs,
Yeah.
um, and sometimes like a fruit smoothie, just to get the carbs in with the toast. And then sometimes I'll have like a bit of pasta and trying to think what else I'd have. That's really it. But for a later game, I usually just have pasta before a game, just to get the carbs in.
Yeah, staple diet, isn't it, for any footballer having some pasta in there? What about halftime or anything? Would you have anything at halftime, like an orange or anything like that?
I usually have sometimes I'd have a banana, like half a banana, or just we have like energy gels,
Yeah.
just like the SIS ones, but just that, or even sometimes like a little bit of a Lucasade, which is kind of like Gatorade, I guess, over there. So
Yeah, yeah, there we go. The Lucas
yeah,
Gatorade relationships going strong across the pond.
yeah.
What about any supplements during your diet, not just on game day, but in general? Would you take like a whey protein or a glutamine, BCAAs, anything like that, just to help aid or maybe fill in any gaps in terms of your diet?
I did when I was at Blackburn. I used to take a bit of protein after gym. Um, we had to take like a certain ones like SIS protein because of some substances are banned.
Yeah.
But I don't really take protein anymore just because I don't really need to build or bulk up.
Mhm.
So I mostly just for me it's more maintaining. So I don't really bulk up. But I say for the younger lads, I'd say take maybe a bit of protein, or even if you can just get an actual meal in after a workout would be ideal.
Yeah, and speaking of after a workout, even after training, after a workout, or even after a game, do you have a go-to food, or is it just whatever you fancy once you've kind of got everything out of the road?
I usually just mostly it's just fish, chicken, pasta, just the yeah, just stuff like that.
Mhm.
I'd say.
Yeah, all the staples, you know what I mean? It's you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier on about the nutrition aspect and not ever having the fast food, the McDonald's and stuff. So it's pretty straightforward for you. Was that nutritional guide, so to speak, was that hard for you to adjust to when you moved across to the UK, or because of the way you were brought up, it was kind of quite straightforward to follow?
I say it was mostly just because of my mom. Like we were brought up like that, so I wasn't really given it, so I've never craved it. So I say that was the main thing for me.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's massive, isn't it? Especially if your family members are backing you early on or making sure you're putting the right foods in. And speaking of your family members and your support system, whenever you did get the opportunity, to leave Canada, leave Toronto, and move across to the UK, what was that support system like? What was your friends and family and coaches? Were they all behind you, telling you to go for it? Or was there any sort of obstacles to overcome?
No, they were all just go for it. Like my mom was massive, massive for that because like for her to let her son go at 15.
Yeah.
Plus my older brother was already away in the UK, so for her to let us go and try and do our dream um, at that young age, I say is massive.
Did you find it, maybe this is a bit of an awkward question, but was it maybe easier or perhaps harder because of the pressure of having a brother? Was it easier or harder having a brother who's already involved at the highest level in professional football?
I wouldn't say it was harder. I think both of us we kind of just challenge each other, try to get the best out of each other.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't really say I thought about that too much, but I think like even just back home, like we're always trying to push each other in training. Um, yeah.
Well, it's probably nice now, you're both, at the same club up in Scotland. Did that make maybe the transition slightly easier for you moving up?
Yeah, definitely. It's helped me even just like my transition into first team football, just trying to get my foot through the door
Mhm.
and just manage myself in the games and
Yeah, I mean, from playing in the UK and Europe, I know you moved over at 15, so it's maybe a hard question to answer this, but what was the biggest difference that you've noticed from playing in Canada to playing in the UK?
definitely the pace of the game. It's just way, way faster. You don't have as much time on the ball as you would think. Like I remember like my first game, I was on trial at Blackbird and we played Liverpool actually, and you just don't have any time to think. You got to know your awareness before you get the ball, and I say that's massive. Even just physically, like every player is so fit.
One of the key aspects of your journey was you signed your first professional contract at Blackburn Rovers, and I think it was Tony Mowbray was in charge at that time. What was it like for you to have that relationship with Tony, or even to feel trusted by the first team manager when giving you your first professional contract? Did that give you that level of trust and desire to push on and grow?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I think that's just kind of just boost your confidence. Just
Mhm.
have that faith that you sees you being a possible first team player,
Mhm.
offering you a professional contract.
And talk to me about your time at Blackburn. You played a lot of games there. You were there for a lot of years. Tell me about the experience of playing there and the lessons that you learned during your time period there.
Yeah, for sure. So I was there for 6 years, which seems like a long time, but there was a lot of ups and downs. I had a lot of injuries,
Mhm.
which kind of just pushed me back, but just trying to overcome those. And you know, I I would say like just from being there for 6 years has got to me to where I am today, just technically and just tactically with all the coaches.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so important, isn't it? Going up through all the different age group levels and then playing reserve team football and under 23s football, playing even first team football at different stages and learning from, some veterans, some, experienced players, some even locker room leaders and stuff like that. In terms of your individual focus, is there ever anything in terms of the game where outside of your corporate training that you've went, I need to work on that, and you've done something outside of club level to try and enhance something in your personal performance?
Yeah, definitely. So I was touching about like analysis before.
Yeah.
I always watch all my games back.
Mhm.
Just I think that's the best way to learn from watching yourself physically. So I always see like what I can improve on, my weak points in the game, and even just my strengths, just trying to maximize them strengths. And then I would do individual sessions, just training on my own, whether that's getting like on the half turn quicker or checking my shoulder more, and just doing that, like even just bouncing off the wall, make sure I check my shoulder, just stuff like that. Let's say.
Yeah, just those little key moments, those 1% to take you to the next level. I think it's vital. I think for a young player who's wanting to progress and wanting to push forward to do that. Um, Being up at Ross County, you're obviously playing some big teams in the league. Your Rangers, your Celtic, you've Hibs, you've Hearts. It seems to be there's a battle going on every single week. Do you enjoy that type of football?
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like just going to war every week. Literally. But yeah, I just enjoy it. Just competitive football, fighting for points.
Mhm. And what about the mindset as well? Because that has to be not only physically demanding on you. You know, we've talked about what you do, the recovery day, the day after a game, but mentally demanding that you're going to war every week, that every week's a scrap, and every week you're battling for points and it's physical, it's intense. You know, every ball is fought for. How do you cope with that mentally?
What I do personally is I actually take it one game at a time.
Mhm.
I just think, just take one game at a time, get through that game, try to be the best player on the pitch every time you step on the pitch. And that's just how I take it, just one game at a time.
And how important is that for you to have that mindset? You know, take it a game at a time and not get carried away and look 3 years down the line. Was that integral in how you progress?
I say so. Yeah, I think because I think if you think 3 games ahead, you're not focused on the game that you're ahead, like straight ahead.
Yeah.
So I think because each team's different, um, like tactically, some teams play longer, some teams, play more football. So I think each game you got to take it one at a time because each team's different. So
Yeah, it is, isn't it? You know, the tactics you mentioned it technically. All of a sudden, you can be dealing with a long ball, and you know one team could just pump balls at the box all day, and the next team's trying to play out from the back, and you have to adjust every single week to what you're up against. Tell me about some of the challenges you faced in your career. You mentioned at Blackbird you were injured, and you had to keep overcoming injury and setback after setback. That's obviously been a challenge. How do you overcome those challenges, and how do you stay focused and positive and able to grow and to develop?
yeah, so I had quite a few injuries actually at Blackburn. So I did my first one was my MCL in my knee, just going in to tackle, just unlucky. I did like a grade 3 MCL, and then I was out for like 4 months with that. Um, Came back. They said I was lucky not to have cartilage damage. Came back, played for a few months, and ended up getting cartilage damage for another 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and then came back for that. And then I trained, playing matches, and I was getting like a bit of back pain. And I was thinking, oh, this is nothing because I've just been out for ages. And I just carried on playing, kept getting worse and worse. Ended up being a stress fracture, out
Oh,
for 10 months. And then I think that one was a big one for me because it was my back. I couldn't do any gym, nothing. Um, Lost like 7 kilograms, and then got back to that. Played a full season. Um, Ended up doing the next season, like the last season, gone. My ankle, and the same season my hamstring. So it's just I think I've had a lot of setbacks, but I think I've always been the work ethic that I've had is always just trying to improve it because it's most of my injuries have been out of my control. So I think all you can do is just take it, even though it's tough. You just got to go with it and just try and work and be the best version of yourself.
something that you've said there, and it's made me think, especially as a young player, and you're getting injured, and you mentioned your back pain, and you tried to play on for a while, and you played a few games and thought, that's fine, it'll go away. Do you ever feel, maybe it's an awkward way to ask this, but do you ever feel any pressure as a young player trying to push into the first team football to kind of play through injuries, or are you able to sort of put your hand up and say, hey, I'm sore, I need to set out, and how do you find that balance?
Yeah, for me, I always just try to play through the pain, which is probably I don't recommend this. Like I don't know what it is, but like I would have to get stretched off the pitch before I get off the pitch. Like if I broke my leg, I'd probably try and play on. But yeah, I think there is a bit of pressure there because I think I've had a couple injuries where like 2 back to back, and then with my back, I just tried to carry on with it because I didn't want to be injured again. Um, but I think like if you are struggling, you need to just call it and just get the right treatment for it straight away.
And obviously the clubs
Don't do what I
there,
did.
yeah, don't do what you do. Don't play through it.
Yeah.
But obviously, the clubs there, they have the physio, they have the sports science, they have everything there that you need to help recover, and that probably helps you and aids in terms of your recovery. The belief that you're going to come back and be greater and be stronger and be fitter and get back to the level you were at, and then try to push further than that level. Where would you say your self belief or your confidence comes from?
Um, I say I've just always had it. I don't know. I just think I've always just tried to be the best version of myself, trying to always improve everything I can. whether that's technical or even just fitness and gym. With like being injured, I'll try and improve my fitness as much as I can.
And an interesting point, because you left Blackbird and you came up to Ross County where you're at now. The decision to leave Blackbird, whether it was yours or whether it was the club's decision, was that a hard time period, or did you know that there was something else out there?
Yeah, it was definitely hard. It was at the point where COVID was massive too, so a lot of clubs weren't really looking for players.
Mhm.
I was in Scotland, just just waiting for a club with my same with my brother.
Yeah.
Um, and he ended up getting called up for the national team. So I was here at the flat, um, just training on my own, just on the pitch.
Mhm.
And then he ended up getting COVID, um, and I tested positive as well. So I was isolating for another 10 days without another club. Just trying to stay fit.
Mhm.
So I say it was tough because I had to keep the right mindset, even though I didn't have a club, to try and keep fit. Just to have that chance to get into a new club.
And when did the Ross County connection come then? Like, how did you end up signing for Ross County with your brother?
So I came on trial for a week,
Mhm.
and then I guess they just really liked me, and then they offered me a contract,
Mhm.
and then it's just yeah, just from there.
Simple as came up, you've done the trial, you've performed excellently. I think it's probably your work as well. And I think this is something I want to focus on for the listeners. You know, Ben came up from Blackburn, he was out of contract, but he applied himself individually. He went out and he worked, and his brother probably worked with him before he went to the national team. And those guys were applying themselves every single day to get better. And when they went on trial, they were sharp, they were fit, and they were able to perform, and thus got the contract. I think there's a lesson in there for any of our listeners.
Yeah,
Just because you're not at a club, just because maybe your contract's expired or you decided to leave, there's still opportunity, provided you're continuing to better yourself. And I love that part of your story where you're not at Blackburn anymore, but you're still going out and applying yourself. And you've ended up landing on your feet at Ross County. You're playing first team football. You're with your brother. Your brother's been called up to the national team. And I think it's an incredible, way to look at results of continuing to work hard, outside of
yeah,
club football.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
And like you mentioned, your brother was called up to the national team, and I want to talk about the goals for yourself and for the remainder of this season. But is the goal to play for the national team at some stage in your career?
Yeah, 100%. Be an honor to represent my country.
And
Um,
they're going really well at the minute as well. So now is
yeah,
is is the time that everyone's the eyes are turning. They're beginning to fulfill the potential really, and they're Canadian footballers all over the world right now, in Europe, in America, in Canada, even in South America, playing football. It must be an amazing experience for you as a Canadian, and a proud experience to see the amount of Canadians playing around the world and how that can benefit the international team as well.
yeah, it's amazing. I even seen like all the fans at the BMO Stadium. It was incredible, and I
Yeah.
think they're Canada's in the top 50 now, which is the first time. So I think I can't remember if it's how long or if you think this is the first time ever, but
Yeah, I think it's
it's
the first time as well, and it's incredible to see. And even in the 5 years that I've lived in Canada, you can see the growth of the sport. And again, for our listeners listening to this, I know there'll be listeners in Canada listening to this. There are so many clubs beginning to put more and more things in place for young people to improve. And you only have to look at Ben, who is our guest today, as a testament to how hard he's worked, and he's made the development and the change over to the UK, and he's worked again, and now he's up playing first team football in Scotland. I think it's an incredible part of your journey. Um, what are your goals for the rest of this season? You mentioned you take it game by game. Is the aim just to stay fit, to stay playing, to stay part of the first team and see what happens, or do you have any other goals on top of those?
yeah. I'd say for me is to stay fit. Just try and get as many matches in as I can. Also just try and do the best for the club. Try and get as many points on the board.
And the future for you, you're a young player and the sky's the limit for you, but you're constantly going to keep improving yourself. And that's what the future is for you: constant improvement, constant development, and see where it takes you. But I want to ask a couple of questions just to quickly get to know you before we wrap this up. So I want to know who inspired you as a young player.
I always looked up to Frank Lampard. I always just watched him growing up. He was the same position as me, so I'd say I always looked up to him. Always watched Chelsea. I always have some a Chelsea supporter, so I always watched them. So I'd say Frank Lampard always inspired me.
What a player, phenomenal player, phenomenal career, and obviously the amount of goals he scored from centre midfield it's actually ridiculous when you start looking
Yeah.
at it. He was doing that, maybe 15 years before centre midfielders were scoring 15, 20 a season. It was just scary good. You mentioned Frank Lampard was a big influence on your career. Was there anyone in terms of when you moved to the UK that you took a maybe at Blackburn, maybe an older player in the first team that you took a liking to or you learned from?
I'd say like a lot of the staff, even just at Blackburn, were former players.
Mhm.
So they had a lot of knowledge of the game. I was always looking up to like the first team players, wanting to get into there and like, obviously try and get into the first team. But I'd say, yeah, always constantly looking at some of the first team players. I wouldn't say there was like an individual first team player. I think I kind of looked at everyone because, every player is different and you kind of want to take all their strengths and put it into your own game.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Whenever you've had a bad day or a bad game or things aren't going well and you're struggling to sleep and you're staring at the roof at night and things are tough, how do you get over those hurdles to get back at it again?
I think the best thing, like even though it's tough, you just gotta kind of just take it out of your mind and just move on to the next game. Like as I said, I take each game day to day. So I think if the one game doesn't go too well, make it right the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing with football, isn't it? There's always another game. And that's it. If you've had a bad game, it's always like, okay, I'll just make up for it next week. Obviously you're frustrated, you've had a bad game and you're aware of the mistakes, but you don't dwell on it because that obviously
Yeah.
just leads to obviously crazy thoughts and you
Yeah.
wouldn't sleep. But just to get a little bit more in depth for you. So if I was your football coach and I walked into Ross County tomorrow and I said, right, Ben, I want to get the best out of you, what qualities or what attributes would I need to bring the best out in you?
I just say like a positive mindset. Someone that's always just looking for the best for the players. I'd also say, someone that's good like technically and tactically, good knowledge of the game. Just so we have good shape and like a good game plan going into each match. Um, I think it's important to for the players to know what they're meant to do on the match day. Yeah, actually, that's the main things.
It is, isn't it? Not knowing what to do or maybe being caught in two minds. If you don't know a style, if you don't know a technique, or you don't know the shape, but just being structured, so to speak, in some aspect to allow players to go out and express themselves, so to speak. As we begin to wrap this up, if you could give one piece of advice to either, I'll put it this way, a younger footballer, someone who wants to go pro, what piece of
Yeah.
advice would you give them? Or if you could give a piece of advice to yourself when you were 15 years old on how to improve, what piece of advice would you give?
I would just say always work hard. And in every match you play, just try to be the best player on the pitch because you never know who's watching.
Absolutely, absolutely, indeed. Ben, this has been a fantastic chat. I've kept you 30 minutes. We've delved into some of the attributes and some of the way your mind works and how you perform at the top level. I want to wish you well for the remainder of the season. If people want to follow your journey and see what you're up to and see how you're doing every week, where are you on social media?
I'm on Instagram, Ben underscore Paton, and Twitter, Ben underscore Paton 8.
There you go, folks. He's on Instagram, on Twitter. Give him a follow, give him a like, see what he's up to. Be consistent, see his journey, get involved with it. Ben, I wish you the best. I want to thank you so much for coming on to today's show, guys. For all your Matchfit football needs, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook at Matchfit Football. Check it out. This has been the Matchfit Football Podcast. This has been Ben. I'm Darren. We've had a great chat. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll be back with you next week.